Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hit the like button, share, subscribe, turn up your notifications so you're notified whenever we go live. Let's keep this simple. Make it easy for yourself. You never want to miss any one of these sessions. My name is Ola, coming to you live from my Empire Pro Studios. And what we do here is marriage coaching. All right, so welcome back. Yeah, we've got an interesting session for today. Today we're talking about why good intentions are not enough to save a marriage. Okay, good intentions are not enough to save a marriage. Yesterday we talked about why people become detectives in their marriage, and today we want to take it a little bit deeper. Say deeper. We want to go a little bit deeper. We want to answer a deeper question. Why do good people still destroy good marriages? All right. Why do the easy answer that everybody gives themselves is just find you a good person. Just find you the right person. And it's also almost very disrespectful to people who feel like they've actually done the needful in finding the right person, but somehow, some way, their marriage still end up in a ditch. All right. So, and when I say in a ditch, it doesn't always mean divorce. Sometimes it means living in a bad marriage. So today we're going to spend some time talking about why good intentions are not enough to save a marriage. Why do good people still destroy good marriages? Whatever good means, right? Most people, they don't just wake up trying to hurt their spouse, contrary to what your feelings might tell you, right? Because just think about it this way: your spouse can turn around, your wife, your husband can turn around and say you have intended to hurt them. And then, of course, you will get into an argument and say, that's not true. You have intended to hurt me. I don't know what I did. I ended up marrying my enemy, you know? So, and that's what we're going to cover today, right? So, what do we have? First of all, we have, let's see here. We have, let me blow this up so you can see easily. Let's do 20. There you go. So, first we have intentions, right? We have, what's wrong with my capital letter? Thank you. We have intentions, right? Good intention. Mostly, if you're watching this, I have no doubt that you are a good person. Nonetheless, you want a good marriage, but somehow, some way, it's not exactly what you've envisaged. You've gotten hit with surprises, and you conclude that the other person is just bad behavior, right? So you have good intention. Let's just call it intention, good or not, right? And then what else do we have? We have behavior. Let's blow this up. It's behavior, right? 20. Then we have behavior, right? So your intentions is basically what determines what your behavior would be, at least from your own point of view. If you have good intentions, generally you would want to behave well, right? So again, what else do we have? Now, after we have your behavior, let me put this on one line actually. After we have behavior, then we have impact. This is the part that many people miss. They don't really consider impact. They just think about, well, I have good intentions, that should be good enough. Okay, if I have good intentions, that should be. But the reality is that your behavior is going to create an impact on another human being. I know you married that person. You're supposed to be one to become one, right? Excuse me. right? All right. So what do we have after impact? So remember now we have your intention, right? We have behavior. We have impact. Well, after impact, the impact is basically what they feel. Well, they are going to interpret the impact. So we have interpretation. We're talking about human interactions. We're probably zoning in on romantic relationships, aka marriage, right? Or at least a marriage as a goal. Yeah. So you have intention. Let me call it. I took the S out. Intentions. You have good intentions. Behavior, right? This is a sequence of how things actually work, right? Then after you have in interpretation, what do we have? We have reaction, right? This is the part where your husband will say, "You made me do it." Well, that would be crazy. It's usually women that says, "You made me do it," but these days, in this time and age, we have, it's modeled up. We have men actually trying to compete with women these days. But yeah, reaction. Okay, reaction. We're not talking about what we're just you will react, right? Your interpretation will determine your reaction. So what do we have? We have intentions, we have behavior, we have impact, we have interpretation, and now we have reaction. Is that the end? Right? No, that's not the end. Okay. After all of that, you now have what we have, what we call new reality. Okay. The new reality is created, right? All of this started with intentions. You meant no harm, right? You meant no harm. All you were trying to do, you had your intentions. Hopefully, it's good intention. Usually, it's good intention, right? Because I'll tell you like this: go to the courthouse, family courthouse, and look at all the people going through divorce. None of them are going to admit they are a bad person, okay? And you and I can agree that they're mostly not bad people. They're just people that life happens to. We call them, but the reality is that when we say life happens, can we learn something? Can we see some patterns, right? Some patterns that you can learn from and you can absolutely avoid. All right. So here's what I'll tell you, right? People in general, people in general, they judge themselves. They judge self by their intention, right? People judge themselves by their intentions, right? So you as an individual, you judge yourself by your intentions. But what we're saying is that that is not enough. That is not correct. People judge themselves by their intentions. So if you as a wife, you have an intention to just let him know that something went wrong, well, your intention will be the single one thing that will drive your behavior, but the impact, you never know what that looks like. How he interprets that, you never know. Well, he's going to react. All of this, starting from this point on forward, you're not really in control. Somewhat. That's why I say really. You're not really in control. Well, once it hits this part, you're no longer in control. The only thing you can control is this part right here: intention, behavior. But I'm going to put it to you right now: this part is highly overrated. This part you can control. Let's put an underline on that, right? So again, what did I say? People judge themselves by their intentions, right? Your personal intention is how you judge yourself. You say, well, I didn't mean to harm you. Well, now you have to communicate that to the other person. You have to go through the same sequence all over again. Your intention is to let them know that you meant no harm. That's going to drive your behavior. What's your behavior? The way you communicate, right? The way you communicate is going to create an impact. Now they have to interpret, and now they're going to give you reaction, and this is going to compound out. Hopefully in the positive direction. Usually it's in the negative direction. Make sense? Does it make sense? I hope so. All right, so now what do we have? You have your partner, your husband. Is his experiences are basically your behavior. Your behavior will create an experience for him, right? And you now end up in an argument that you say, I didn't mean it that way. But just because you didn't mean it that way, you're communicating that a certain type of way. It doesn't necessarily solve the problem, right? I didn't mean it that way. That's not what I meant. And in that moment, he or she feels like, hey, you didn't mean it that way, but you keep doing this over and over again. You didn't mean it that way. Like, what is this? Am I married to my enemy or what? Have you ever felt that way? That you're married to your enemy? Right? I didn't mean it that way. What did you mean? Well, that's you feeling that way. Oh, that's me feeling that way, right? Quite dismissive. Maybe you don't see that way, but if you look at this sequence here, it's very easy. It's very easy for the translation of your intention to the new reality. It's very easy for you to, all of this is happening in real time, right? And it's very easy for you to, at some point, you lose connection, you feel disconnected, you get caught up in your own feelings, because honestly, you didn't mean it that way, but they're interpreting it in a completely different way and they're reacting in a way that is offensive to you. Now you have an effective bass boost. So you do this over and over and over again. Maybe in the first 1 year in your marriage, you didn't do this. Second year, you start to see traces of it, right? And somebody's like, wait, didn't you see this when you were dating? Yeah, it's very, very possible that it gave you lots of grace when you were dating. It is very, very possible. All right. So some people will react. I'll give you some examples. Some people will say, I was only joking. Some people don't appreciate that. Some of you are married to people that don't appreciate that, right? I was only joking. Your intention is to let them to calm down and say, hey, I was joking. That was a joke. Well, the joke did not land, right? Right? Some of you were authentically trying to help. You say, hey, I was only trying to help. You were trying to help. Well, you didn't help. You made it worse. And now that's offensive to you because that tampers with your good intentions, right? That makes you get defensive. Defensiveness is one of the 4 predictors of divorce, right? If you do enough of them, you will end up in divorce. All the while you had good intentions. You're a good person. In fact, you started a good marriage, right? It had nothing to do with if you're married to the right person or not. In fact, I was on a live session yesterday where people kept emphasizing compatibility. Compatibility is a thing, but most times it's a cop out, okay, from responsibility. You are in a human being to human being relationship. That's going to require work. It requires skills. You have to know what you're doing when it comes to communication. Communication is not about talking. Majority of the form of communications is actually not talking. I hope this is making sense. If it's hitting good, please make sure you turn on the like button. The minimum, I know it's early in the morning, people are busy, you guys are busy taking care of the kids and all that kind of stuff, but hit the like button. Help me hit the like button if it's making sense to you. Okay, I was trying to protect you. Men will say, I just want women benefit more from marriage. I was just trying to protect you. I am your covering, right? And she's like, wait, if I need protection, just trying. Like, I was trying to protect you. If I need protection, I'll call the police. She's completely disconnected from your idea of protection. In fact, she doesn't feel protected. In fact, she feels like she wants to run away from you. She feels like she needs to protect herself from you. What happened? Intentions, reality, the new reality is far from the intention. This is what it means when people say, hey, marriage takes work. Well, it's not just marriage, it's anything that's worthwhile, anything you value, anything you want to take advantage of, and you want to make sure you're reaping all the benefits, all the greatest benefits out of it. It requires work. Okay, it requires you to invest time, energy, and sometimes money. Why? Because it has a highly rewarding return on investment. Okay, so I was just trying to help you, but that's not the new reality that was created from your behavior, right? If somebody is honest enough, right? If they are honest enough, the closest to honesty you're going to get in this, because some of you are obsessed with honesty being the best policy, right? And then as honest you get, it gets worse, right? Does that mean you shouldn't be honest? No, it means there's something you need to learn. There's something you need to learn. So the closest to honest you're going to get is, I didn't mean to hurt you, right? That means this person is actually, at least bare minimum, I guess, they're admitting that they've hurt you, but they're also still connected to what? To their intention. They didn't mean to hurt you, but you felt hurt. Now, flip this on the end. You might be on the other side of it, right? So you might be the one who actually have hurt another person, but you're not even willing to admit that you've hurt the other person because you can't see it. Because all you can see is your intentions, your good intention, right? So what do we have most times in quote unquote good marriages? You have good intentions, ending up as bad impact, right? Which obviously leads into bad reaction and a new reality, and that's usually negative. That's why you see the divorce rate skyrocketing everywhere, right? That's why you see the divorce rate is skyrocketing everywhere. You've seen the news, you've been to that wedding. I mean, literally just 18 months ago, that wedding is over. No, that marriage is over. It's done. Right? It's done. So now we need to identify the difference between intention and impact. Right? Let me see if I can quickly draw a table here. I don't know if I can do that. Insert a table with let's just make it let me see something here. Let's make it 3 rows. Insert. I need a better tool. If you have a better tool I could use to continue this illustration, let me know. 3 rows, 2 columns. There you go. Boom. All right. So we need to differentiate between intention and impact, right? Intention, then impact. What is the difference? This time and age, people are saying love is not enough. And then I'm always asking, if love is not enough, what is enough? If love is not enough, what is enough? People say that so nonchalantly and seemingly they get away with it, but the grave impact of that, even though good intentions, because people say love is not enough, they really mean to say, hey, you need skills, you need more, you need to learn more. I completely get that, but I think we should find another word, to use in place of what is not enough. Maybe good intentions is not enough. How's that? So today we're talking about why good intentions are not enough to save a marriage. Anyway, love, leadership. Leadership is how you monitor the impact of your behavior? It starts from self-leadership. I'm not talking about men being the headship of a household. Of course, that's one of the reasons why that's very important. Okay? I'm talking about starting with self-leadership. You as an individual, do you have self-leadership skills? Is this engaged in self-improvement, continuing education when it comes to human interaction, especially the relationship that you value the most in your life, that you have a lot more at stake, your marriage? Intentions, love. Impact, how do you monitor leadership? Those are glaring differences that you can start monitoring immediately. The second one, there's more, but the second one I would want to share with you just for this session is when it comes to intention. Intentions are driven by emotion. You honestly, authentically, you want to contribute to the other person, right? So over here, one of the frameworks that we teach, right, is one of the frameworks that we teach is the six basic human needs, right? They're all emotional in nature. Okay. All of this, everything you do, no matter how selfless you think you are, is driven by one of these six things right here: certainty, variety, significance, connection, growth, contribution. You honestly, authentically want to contribute to the other person in a positive way, but you've disconnected from the impact of your behavior because your intention drives your behavior. It's all selfish. In the grand scheme of things, in the final analysis, selfish. But now, how do you make sure that it's not selfish? You got to think long term. You got to think beyond just you. You got to think the overall empire that you're trying to build, right? So, what do we have? It impacts. In order to make sure that the impact, emotional intelligence. I've literally seen people use emotions and emotional intelligence interchangeably. It's wild. But English is not our first language, so I understand. They're not the same thing. Emotion and emotional intelligence are not the same thing. Your intentions are driven by love, emotion, but when you want to focus and you want to actually build something long term, you got to pay attention to leadership, right? Start with self leadership. Let me just put self leadership behind it too, okay? Actually, let me put it because it's more like a caveat. I'll put it in parentheses like this. I hope if this is making sense, please make sure you hit the like button. We're trying to turn this up. If this is valuable, I'll do more of it. Okay? If this is valuable, I'll do more of it. The other day, I was on a live stream as a guest, and I was talking about relationship poisons, and I got dropped. It's kind of weird, but if we're trying to build something, right, how do we make sure that we actually communicate what the poisons are? Don't you think you need to know what the poisons are? There are many, many poisons, but I'm going to cover a few of them. Because some of those poisons, they are camouflaged as good intentions. Remember, because it's driven by emotion, and sometimes you just mean to protect yourself, but then the impact of protecting yourself is actually tampering with the overall health of your relationship, not just long term, even from mid to long term. Like literally in the next 2 days, you will see the impact. You meant well, but the impact of your behavior mixed up together with that person's framework to interpret has created a new reality, has created the type of reality that you don't want. Okay, so I want to share with you a couple of poisons that you might not see, right? But I want to explain what they actually mean, right? But again, we'll continue to talk more about this. But with respect to this conversation, you see how it links directly to good intentions, right? So number one of that is criticism. Yeah. Shout out to Peanut Girl. Yes, we are having whiteboards in the morning. Good to see you. All right. Hit the like button. Don't forget to hit the like button. All right. So the first one, let's call it one, is criticism. Criticism. Let me make sure I pronounce that right. Criticism. Criticism. Yeah, there you go. Criticism, right? Criticism is usually like there's nobody that wake up one day and say, "Hey, I'm just going to criticize my husband." Well, who is calling it criticism? The person calling it criticism is the person who feels criticized, right? Your intentions are far from that. Your intentions are typically far from criticism. How does criticism translate from what is the chain between good intentions and new reality? If we have intentions and we have behavior, and then we have impact, and then we have reaction, and then we have interpretation, then reaction, and then we have new reality. Can you comprehend how criticism travels from good intention to new reality, which is usually bad? Can you see that, how that plays out real fast? Can you see how that can spiral out of control? Huh? It's very easy, right? All you had was good intentions. All you had was good intention all along. You meant no harm. I mean, this is the person you love. In fact, you guys might have just had sex in the last few hours, last night. But somehow everybody's walking around the house with a mean mugged face, and you have no idea what is going on with this person. You didn't mean to criticize, but that's what they felt. As a matter of fact, they they're not telling you what is really going on with them. Why? Because they're terrible at communication too, right? They're also terrible at communication. So they're not able to tell you, at least not yet. Maybe eventually they will boil up like pressure cooker. They wait until the thing builds up to a certain level, right? Before they finally tell you what is going on. Can you see how criticism can travel from good intentions to bad reality very quickly within the context of marriage, right? You see something that needs improvement, that's all, and your motivation is as simple as positive as they come. You want to help that person. You want to make your project, that site, you want it to go a little bit faster. You want to save them, ladies. You can often see some things ahead of us. You want to save them from a future mistake, right? But subconsciously, you assume that because you guys are one, you just made this assumption that you guys are one. Yeah. It gets very, very muggy. It gets very disruptive in your life because you can go to work that day now, and now you have to keep try to play it out. Like, where did you go wrong? Where did you go wrong? Eventually, you give up. You say, you know what? I don't have time for this. That they will be all right. You said you don't have time for it. They will be just fine. That's the problem but the number two, right? Number two, relationship poisons. The poisons are often, again, in the beginning, from your standpoint, they are presented as good intentions. You meant no harm. Nonetheless, there is harm. Okay? Nonetheless, there's harm. Let's look at this image real quick. Let's look at this image. I think this is pretty cool. Look at this image right here. Oh my God, this is awesome. Check this out, right? Number one, good intentions, right? From intent to new reality. Good intentions, you have a genuine, unseen desire to help or improve. That's all. You meant no harm. Two, critical behavior, right? You point fingers. You yell at them. Actually, you thought you were using a nice tone, but that's not how they received it, right? So we're talking about your words, delivery, right? Some of you are just proudly blunt. You're assertive and proudly blunt. You mean no harm, you right? You just a confident woman, right? Blunt, but the wrong timing. Three, impact on the receiver. The other person feels like in their face. You can't see it because it's at a mindset, emotional level, right? You can't see it. They get triggered. You've never taken the time to understand where they're coming from, the first 18 years of their life, how they were raised, right? Who is responsible for all of this? The sender or the receiver? That's a question I have for you. Who is responsible for this? That's a question that people keep asking. They keep answering it the wrong way, okay? Because they're all selfish. We are all selfish, right? What does this do? It triggers defensiveness, right? It is experienced as a social threat. No, it is not physical threat always, okay? Remember, these are good people. It's a social threat. It threatens their sense of safety. They don't feel safe to really share what is going on with them with you either, And of course, for reaction and interpretation, right? The receiver acts defensively. The sender misreads this as hostility. Why? Because that defensiveness is coming back at you as an attack. It feels like an attack now. I'm spending way too long on this. And then the sender's action, the sender feels unheard. They double down and they get frustrated. And the new reality is a toxic cycle because they're sending stuff back to you too, probably with the same level of skill set, if not lower. Eroded trust, a damaged relationship, and of course, brand new conflict on top of each other. It compounds out. It's a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle. Is this making sense, ladies and gentlemen? Let's move on to number two. I don't know if I have time for all of this today. I'm going way too deep into this. Number two, I think we've kind of mentioned that. Defensiveness. Right? We don't need to spend too long on that again. Defensiveness. So I've already shown you how that easily translates into defensiveness in that flow, in that interaction flow that you're looking at, right? Easily. It's so easy. It's effortless. You don't have to intend it. You see how good intentions are overrated? This is what I mean when I tell you that, right? You don't have to intend it. Okay? And of course, that naturally flows into the worst of them all. This is the worst of them all because, again, you're trying to defend yourself, you're trying to cope, you're trying to have this conversation, but the other person is not receiving it. They're interpreting your intentions into something entirely different. So, of course, we have stonewalling, aka for this platform, it means malice keeping. It also means silent treatment. Okay? I don't care what country you come from and you're trying to separate the meanings. It's the same thing. Okay? It's abusive behavior, but I understand it can also be a coping mechanism. I get that. Okay? So, in other words, just because you're being defensive doesn't mean you get to escape your own responsibility around that. And number four, this is the worst of them, contempt. Because now it's you against your lover, your homie, lover, and friend. Once upon a time, you got married. You were going to do life, sweetness together. But now you're at odds with each other. Enemy. You married your enemy. What do? You go back to reflect. You say, hey, I married my enemy. I married the wrong person. No, you're wrong. That also means that you're the wrong person. Oh, yeah, I'm willing to admit it, but that's BS because you're running away from responsibility because now you have kids and you have a life, you're cooking, and that's irresponsible because you can't get time back. At least you want to make sure you do the work first, even if that means it still has to end up in divorce. You have to make sure you do the work. You can't just run away from your responsibility. You can only do that for so long. That's why second and third marriages end up in the ditch 75% or more of the time, because people keep running from their own shadow, and that's not going to work. That's unrealistic. Simply not going to work. Criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and contempt. This is what it looks like. Right there. That's what it looks like. That's why people struggle in a relationship. Okay? That's why. Okay? So if you look at this, if you carefully look at this framework, if you look at, I call it framework, but I'm an engineer, so, but if you look at that path, the path that good intention took all the way to new reality, you would also notice some very, very distinctive thing that happened there. One, you have pride, right? And pride usually leads to mismanaged expectations, because now you think you had good intention and that should lead to good reality, but that's mismanaged expectations, right? And then that leads to poor behavior on your part, because you're being defensive too, because you're trying to tell them that they're wrong. They're also trying to tell you the same thing. And that leads to negative impact. And of course, that leads to even more conflict. It's a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle, guys. If that makes sense to you, please hit the like button. Hit the like button if that's making sense to you. If you can see yourself and your own interaction with your husband, with your wife in this, make sure you're hitting the like button, because this, you being able to see this all the way through, will help you to be 10,000 steps ahead of the next conflict. Okay? It will help you with that. This is a major issue, particularly the pride part of it, because most people assume that they're not prideful because the general public, not their married partner, they assume that since the general public don't see them as prideful, they can't see it. You see this pride thing right here? Oh my God. Pride is the sender overvaluing their own unseen intents. That's what I mean by it's overrated. Okay? It creates a vicious cycle. Mismanaged expectation, assumption that good intention automatically guarantees a good outcome, right? This is why people run to church. They go try to become holy, and they're still in the same problem, because holiness is fault. It has faults in it, because it's rooted in lies. Do you understand? That lie that you are better than the other person is rooted in that. It's called pride, right? Right? So the sender fails to see or minimizes the receiver's pain, right? Another word we call that's very popular on the internet is empathy. But oftentimes I see people use empathy. They don't see how deep it goes, right? When you say empathy, did you mean that, or it just made you feel good when you said it? Well, it's work. Well, also it gets easier with practice. It gets much easier with practice. Okay? So instead of asking asking the question, what did I mean? Right? What did I mean? Like your intentions, right? Instead of asking that question, the question you should start asking starting today is like, what did they experience? What did they experience? Now, but self-love first. Well, this is actually self-love. You just can't see that far, because this is going to help your relationship. It's going to enrich your life. It's going to improve the quality of your life when you have good relationship. Selfishness does not help your relationship, and selfishness is not the same thing as self-love. Most people, when they say self-love, they're talking about selfishness, right? How do I know? Just look at their results. Because this life, there's 8 billion of us here. There's principles and there's guardrails and there's patterns, and it's undefeated. You just have to take the time to study this and understand how this works. Then it will start to make sense to you slowly but surely. But you can't have things rooted or grounded in lies, because remember the GPS. The GPS is grounding, right? Grounding. We're always going to reflect back to this. Grounding, okay? Sometimes we call that God, right? Purpose. In other words, if you have not hit rock bottom ever before in your life, you might struggle to comprehend everything I'm saying here. Then self. All this goes back to self-leadership. Purpose. Self. That's the GPS. This is the core pillars. Once you have this and you're able to tailor this properly, you're able to live this properly, your life will have a lot better quality than the average Joe and Jane, who are good people, but they end up in divorce court. Okay? So, in all of this, okay, if we're looking at this right here, the real question is which part of this can you control? Which one of this can you control? What can you control in all of this? Because it sounds like majority of it is out of your control. Well, we can control the pride part of it, right? You can listen a little bit longer than you talk. Active listening, right? Not just shutting up so you can become a doormat. That's not the point. Remember, it has to be grounded in not lies, but it has to be grounded in a purpose, a greater purpose than any of the individuals. The point here is that good intentions may explain your behavior, right? But they don't erase impact. The impact is also a function of where they're coming from, because it's not your fault that they interpret you a certain way. We're not talking about fault. In fact, if you're thinking about fault, blame, and guilt, that's part of the poisons that you need to avoid. Okay, so that's not what it's about. It's about make sure you understand who you're trying to communicate with, who you're trying to sow seeds into, what you're trying to sow seeds into, what you're contributing. Make sure you take some time to understand it to a certain extent before you assume that you're better than the other person. Okay, that's what we're talking about. Okay, because the impact is what's going to create your reality. That is what's going to create your reality, right? This is not that part you can't control. You can control understanding it so you can learn how to navigate it. And when you do that, you create better realities than people that just make assumptions that just because they're a good person, they have a free pass through life. No be juju, but that's juju now. If you have any questions, this is a good time to put in the chat, because we're going somewhere with this series. Okay, we're going somewhere with this series, ladies and gentlemen. Prestige family, make sure you're sharing this with people that will value it. That's everybody, in my opinion. That's everybody. Everybody is moving madly when it comes to their love life, and they think just because they're good persons, it's supposed to be good. That is lies from the pits of hell, and that's the lie that the devil is telling a lot of people. And you can look around you and you can see that I'm also telling you the truth. Okay, so if today's lesson describes your marriage, you can book a private discovery session. All you have to do is go to where's that link again? All you have to do is go to getmymarriageback.com/discovery. Now, if you have any questions, feel free to drop it. I'll hang around for another few more minutes, okay? But let's reiterate through this a little bit, okay? Again, good intention. This is the criticism journey, right? You didn't mean to criticize the person. You're just trying to improve the quality of the love life you have, right? You're just trying to express yourself. Maybe forget the love life for a second. Maybe, the kids. You need help with the kids or something like that. Right? And all you did is expressed it. It was a genuine, unseen desire to help all of you's reality. Or maybe he's spending money the way he's not supposed to, and you see something you're trying to tell him, but he doesn't listen. He's a coconut head, right? So what do? See, this part, step 1 and 2, you can control it. You have control of it, right? You can say, hey, you can start by saying, I have good intentions, but let's make sure that this lands properly. How do you make sure of that? People ask questions, say, So am I supposed to start reading minds? Like, wow, you're still asking those kind of questions. Do you know how costly divorce is? Forget money for a second, because some of you are going to say, well, prenup, prenup. No, forget money. Do you know how costly, how expensive break fast from a marriage heartbreak is? You know how expensive is that beyond your own life in terms of the impact on your kids? I'm not talking about extreme physical violence situation, which in case you need to run for your life. I'm talking about majority of the cases where it's just not seeing eye to eye, not knowing how to seduce your partner. Oh, seduction. Why are we talking about seduction? Because you're in a romantic relationship. Are you kidding me? Do you want good sex without necessarily learning how to seduce? Like, what world do you live in? What are your expectations? Are they realistic? Do you manage your expectations? Abi, you just throw them out there. You just say, hey, just because I'm a good guy, I deserve greatness. Shout out to Mama Grace. I see you, Mama. She says, good afternoon, MOP. Hope you're well. I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well too. The expectations are off. I would never take away from the fact that you're a good person. Because most likely the people around you, they think you're a good person. There's only one person that doesn't think you're a good person, at least the way they behave. Your spouse. It almost, how do you know? Because oftentimes you feel like they don't appreciate you as much as you do so much. They don't appreciate you. You don't feel welcome. You don't feel appreciated. You don't feel loved. You don't feel seen. You don't feel heard. All of this, and you're a good person. Don't you think there's something else that you need to learn? Anyway, there is, and it's good news. Okay? It is absolutely good news. It's good news because some of us are seeing it and we know what the issue is. The issue is pride. Remember, good intentions. You didn't mean to harm anybody. You didn't mean to be prideful. But when you start to dig in a little bit deeper, look at this cycle right here. Good intentions is pride. You're overvaluing your own unseen intent because it's creating bad impact and bad reality. It's creating a toxic cycle. So there's something is wrong somewhere and you need clarity. You need clarity when it comes down to this part of the conversation. Okay? The clarity may very well be, yeah, you married the wrong person. It's almost unlikely. It is almost impossible. It is highly unlikely, I wanted to say. It is highly unlikely. So let me leave you with this. If during today's lesson you found yourself thinking that he's describing my marriage, don't go back to guessing. Don't go back to guessing. Every marriage is different. Yes, you learned a lot today, hopefully. I know for sure you learned a lot today. Every relationship has its own history, has its own uniqueness, its own personalities, and sadly, blind spots. Because that's what we're talking about today, the blind spots. And that's why I'm offering the private discovery session for full 1 hour. We'll listen, we'll hear. I want to get everything about your specific situation, identify what is actually happening, and then we can help you gain some clarity with respect to your unique relationship with your wife, with your husband. Okay, if you're ready for that, simply go to getmymarriageback.com/discovery. That's getmymarriageback.com/discovery. The link is also in the description and it is going to be pinned right after this lecture into the comment section. Okay. So now, if today's lesson has actually helped you and you appreciate it, I appreciate you for being here, either as a live or replay. And you please do me a favor, like the video, subscribe, share it with someone who needs it, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. Yeah, I think so. I'll be right back tomorrow morning. Take care. God bless.
Are you fighting to save a marriage or a relationship, or simply avoiding to end up in a broken or toxic one?
We've been there and you're in the right place. You see, inside this book, right, you will find and you will discover the secret to save a broken marriage, and you will learn how to build and attract the marriage of your dream.